Hi there, it's Peter and welcome to my channel. This is my first video proper, and I thought I would start off being a Beatles, first generation Beatles fan. I thought I would start with the Australian discography, an overview of it, and just to show you what it was all about. Hopefully this will erase some of the mystery for the overseas viewers out there from Europe, South Australia, South America, England, whatever. Okay, some of you might already be familiar with this stuff, but anyway, hopefully you get something out of it. So I'll just start off with, firstly, Please Please Me. Now, just to start with, the Australian catalogue followed the UK catalogue pretty much all the way through, and almost exclusively. Okay, there were some additions with singles, but that's another story which I'll deal with another time. Okay, but for the most part, the Australian albums were the same as the UK. Wrote down track listing, nearly all the way through cover art. This was Please Please Me. This is the mono version. The mono version was issued in October 1963, and the stereo didn't appear until 6 months later in '64. Okay, now that's the cover, but recover was blue, though we did also have initial copies of it had apparently had the black printing, the same as the UK. Now, the initial labels were on the black and gold. Now, I hope you can see that properly. This label is somewhat faded. First pressing had made for Parlophone Records on the in the inner imprint there. The second pressing, also on black and gold, had the Made in Australia for EMI across the middle. Across the middle there. Okay, hope you can see that as well. The black and gold was the first press. This appeared also on the next LP with the Beatles. Now, the third press of this was the black and yellow. Now, black and yellow label appeared in 1964, and from here on, this is pretty much the same as the English label. This is the label that I knew when I was a kid. I remember seeing this label at a party one time, spinning around on the turntable, and I loved the label. I'm a label geek, so you know that's something that I've grown up with all this time. So that was the third press, and then, as I said, there were stereo pressings, but the stereo label were different. And the stereo labels were black and silver, old style black and silver. Now, the stereo here didn't appear until April 1964, so it was pretty much an afterthought. The initial pressings had only the mono on the back cover, but this one, as you can see, has the mono and stereo numbers on the rear sleeve here. Okay, that's the. Now you can see that the covers are pretty well beaten up. These records took a beating back then. People didn't buy to collect; they bought because they wanted, and they wanted to enjoy their records. So, you know, so to find one, to find one of those in good condition is pretty hard. The records actually play quite well. Just so you know, I've got a setup which has got two turntables. Just turn over there, a mono and a stereo setup. The black turntable there has got a dedicated mono cartridge. The silver one has a dedicated stereo cartridge, both Grados. I bought that when I got the mono box. A friend of mine, audiophile, a friend of mine named Stephen Chen, taught me into it, and it actually works out quite well. So that's Please Please Me. Now, I'll show you this also. This is a '66 pressing. There's a logo, a Northern Songs logo here. Now, that first appeared in '66. So, if ever you see one of these with the Northern Songs logo, you'll know that this isn't a '64 pressing. It's actually a later, a '66 pressing. Northern Songs appeared then. It replaced the Leeds Music logo in 1966. Okay, just some additional information for you. That's that. We move on to with the Beatles. In Australia, with the Beatles was issued with local cover art. Now we all know the UK cover. Okay, this is actually an Australian one that came out in the 1980s. Somewhere on the line, they were able to give us that cover in the 1980s. Okay. However, in Australia, we got it as that. A unique cover, to be sure. It's a gloss cover. Very hard to photograph. I've actually tried photographing for my book, and it's very difficult to photograph. By now, it's got both mono and stereo numbers on the rear as well. Okay. Again, it appears on the black and gold label. Made in Australia, 3MI in the middle. That's the first press. Okay. Let's go up further. These are darker labels, so I don't want to take them out of the sleeves. They were prone to fading with time. But then this is a record that is over 50 years old. It's 54 years old or whatever it is now. It came out 63. So yeah, quite old. Actually, no, it's older than that, now that I think about it. 57 years old. Even more. Okay. The second pressing of it came out on the black and yellow, of course. Now, the stereo pressing was issued a month after the mono. Actually, no, yeah, a month after the mono. In Australia, with the Beatles, was issued in February 64. So we're behind the times here in Australia with the Australian pressings of this content. But the stereo followed a month later. That's the second mono. And then we have the stereo pressing, which is that one there. So you can see the pattern. Now, I suppose if you're working in a record store and people were asking for this album, you could easily identify a stereo and the mono and not make an error. So I suppose it's handy for that purpose, okay? But I remember at the time I wasn't even aware of these labels until much later. I think in the I was at a record fair in 2000s. A lot of what I know now I've learned in the last 10 odd years or so. So yeah, it's been quite an education. Stereo records also came with this little sticker as well. Okay, that's that one. Now, we had trouble replicating the cover in Australia, but not so New Zealand. New Zealand managed it. That's a New Zealand pressing. The first press with that label. Okay. Yeah, they had no trouble replicating it. Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know why that was. Okay. Come 1964, and we're going into 4-track recording, and we're going into a Hard Day's Night. Now, I remember being a 7-year-old, going to the cinemas to watch this film with my sister. She took me to Bondi, which is a suburb in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, here in Australia. And yeah, it was an experience. That's the album, and as you can see, the same at the back. Okay. Here's the mono. Now, all these records are in audiophile sleeves, anti-static sleeves. By now, one logo, leads music, all because it's all Lennon McCartney on this album. A tremendous leap forward from the first two. The first two were pretty damn good albums as well, but you're starting to get into classy, mature writing with this album. And of course, we have the stereo version as well. Now, A Hard Day's Night was issued in Australia in 3rd of September 1964, both mono and stereo. It made #1 in Australia, of course. Kind of goes without saying. Yeah, but that's the stereo version of that album. Okay. From here on, it becomes much simpler. I've only got 2 copies of each one, a mono and a stereo for the most part. It's only the first few that I had the multiple variations. The next one, again with the local cover art, but you know, we all know Beatles for Sale is that, you know, with the gatefold cover and all that. This is actually a later 1980s version. This is an Australian one that came out later, but we initially got that with a single sleeve. This kind of is a replicate of the center. I'll show you that compared to that. Basically a reverse of that. Sorry, that's that there. Again, the stereo mono. This was issued in February 1965. Again, we were a few months behind the times here in Australia, being somewhat a lot further away from England as well. The stereo and the mono were issued at the same time. So by now, we're getting both versions. That's the mono. And there's your stereo. Yeah. Now I was saying about being a label geek. I remember, as I said, I remember seeing that label, and it would have been, I was at a party in 1964, it would have been 64, and it would have been with the Beatles playing on a record player, spinning around on a turntable on a record player. I remember seeing this label. Now, later on, you'll see some reissues. But I remember when I started buying these records, that how disappointed I was that they appeared with an orange label. Looked like an orange label. I'll show that down the track for perspective, because I grew up. I remember that label. I mean, I had a fond memory of it, so I had no idea about label design changes and whatnot and all this other stuff. So anyway, that's how that is. As I said, the UK cover was issued in Australia in the 80s as well. Some of these could be found in the Beatles box collection, the blue box. Variously with the UK one with the Beatles. It was very hit and miss at the time when that came out, when that happened. Okay, would have been nice if we kept this. One sensible thing though, I do agree with, is that they actually did have the opening on the outside. I've noticed that on the UK it opens in here, and they're prone to tearing up here. So yeah, much prefer the outside opening. Okay, so that is part 1 of this video series. I hope you got something out of that. Please subscribe. Please hit like if you liked it. Ring that bell. Ding ding ding. Sorry, I'm borrowing that from somebody else. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. You got something out of that. Please leave me some feedback. See what you think. Tell me what you think. Okay. Thank you very much for that, and take care. Bye bye.